Hello and welcome back to my channel. 5 months ago, Epic Gardening released a video on growing microgreens, and then 2 months ago he did another video on 5 veggies that you can harvest in a month. And in it he was talking about his microgreens and how he seasoned it and stir-fried it, and I started thinking, oh, I would eat that now. So I decided that I am going to be trying my hand at growing microgreens for the first time. So I'm going to be using pak choy, beet, and I'm also going to be using lettuce. So I'm going to be using the salad bowl red and green lettuce. So what I'm going to be doing is these 3 tissues and paper. I'm going to be damping them down, and I'm going to be putting the seeds on them, and then I'm going to be wrapping them with the plastic and allowing them to germinate, or at least to soak, for 8 to 12 hours, because that's what Epic Gardening suggests. And then I'm going to be planting them afterwards. So I've never really done microgreens before. I'm going to start off with the lettuce. And I'm going to be spreading the seeds on this piece of hand towel. I'm gonna wet it with my spray bottle. And I'm going to cover it with another piece of hand towel. This is how I germinate my seeds, or at least soak my seeds. I usually use a Ziploc bag, but this plastic works well as well. Now I'm going to be doing the pak choy. I'm not going to be using the grow lights. I have some, but I'm not going to be using it because it is already summer. So I'm going to be putting them outside. I'm actually anxious to see how these things turn out. I think it will be fun. Always fun to experiment with new gardening and worm stuff. So I'm going to cover this one. Just gonna fold this up and put it back in its parcel before I get them all mixed up. And now I'm going to be doing the beetroot. My sister on her gluten-free channel always talk about using the upper layers of the leaf of the beetroot. She used them in her salads. She used them in her gluten-free burger. So now I'm going to get the chance to do so because I have a few beets that I just planted outside. I just transplanted, but those I want to come to maturity. That was my first time planting beet, and I would like to leave those to actually produce the beetroot. So I'm not going to use those for my microgreens, so I'm using this. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to cover that with another piece of plastic. I'm going to let it stay there for until tomorrow morning because it's already 8:30 in the afternoon, although it doesn't seem like it. Here in Saskatchewan we have very long days during spring and summer. I'm just pressing it down to make sure everything gets damp and that the plastic seals around it. Okay, so now I'm going to go outside and I'm going to mix the soil that I want to plant these things in. Oh, I think I missed a step here with my, it should be fine, but I forgot to cover this portion with the paper. There we go. Not that you have to, it is already sticking to the other sheet of paper. There we go. Okay, so I'm going outside now to mix the soil and have it ready for tomorrow so I can sow these seeds. So now I'm going to mix that soil to plant my microgreens, and in here I have some older soil, and I have some soil, that topsoil that I just purchased. So I'm going to mix those with, this is some worm castings. So I'm just gonna put 2 handfuls in there. Make sure it has sufficient nutrients. Because microgreens don't grow to full maturity, so they don't need as much nutrients. But then because of the bulk that they grow in, because if you're growing microgreen, you're going to be growing them closer together than if you're allowing the plants to reach the maturity. So because of the bulk that you're planting in a tiny space, then you're going to want to make sure that you have sufficient nutrients in there. And you want them to grow very fast as well, so you have to make sure that you have the appropriate amount of nutrients in there. And you're not going to be waiting a long time to harvest it either. Within a month of germination, you should be able to harvest, depending on what type of plant it is. I know for a certainty that pak choy grows very fast, because when I was transplanting my pak choy 2 weeks ago, I did that. The plants were less than 2 inches high, and 2 weeks later, right now, they are 5 inches or so. So they do grow very fast once they have the right conditions. So I have to make sure I have enough nutrients in here. I'm going to be growing my microgreens in these containers. So I'm just going to put some of this soil in here. I have 2 of these containers, and that's what I'll be using to grow my microgreens, as I've never grown these before and these are just experiment. I don't want to be growing too much all at once, although I do expect it to grow very well. I don't see a reason for it not to. Container was wet, so a lot of it is sticking to the bottom. This material is pretty wet. I just bought it from the store a few hours ago. Or should I say pretty moist. So I'm going to top these up a bit. Just a little bit. This is a different type of topsoil. So I'm going to just mix it up a bit so that I can get some more of the nutrients that I mixed in from my worm castings into the upper layer, so that the plant will have the nutrients as soon as it starts growing. Okay, and just like that, I now have my soil prepared. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more worm castings on the top of this. One of my clients came today to get some castings and some worms, and he was talking about his trees that he used the castings on in his greenhouse and how tall they were last year, and this year when he planted more stuff in his greenhouse, the same type of plants, and he tried other types of organic fertilizer, and he said there was absolutely no comparison in the rate of growth he said definitely worm casting is the way to go, because he tried several types of organic fertilizers and he's quite satisfied with the worm castings. Okay, so these are now ready. Tomorrow, after my seeds have soaked overnight, I will be finishing off by putting in the microgreens, or should I say putting in the seeds. Okay, so now it's time to get those microgreens in. I'm just gonna take a bit of the soil off the top that I'm going to be putting back on as soon as I put in the seeds. Level that off a bit. Okay, here we go. It's a bit windy. It seems that's all we're getting in Saskatchewan these days. A lot of wind. And when it is windy here, it is really, really windy. So I'm just it's not as moist as it was last night, so the seeds are not staying in place as they normally would, but that doesn't matter. Okay, there we have it. I'm just gonna spread these seeds out a bit. I should have added a bit more water to it yesterday. That would have helped the seeds to stay in place. Okay. Now I'm just gonna cover this over with a thin layer of soil. I'm gonna get a bit of finished compost from this wooden box right here that you're looking at the base of it there. And add it to it. Still has a bit of rough material in it because I'm using it to feed my worms. Okay, so that's the first one. Just gonna do the same thing with this. Just a little of the surface that's gonna go on top. Nicely done. I'll just put this in the worm bin. Now we're going to do the same thing for the pak choy. Thankfully, it was just the lettuce seed that wasn't damp enough for those things to stay in place. So I'll just brush these off in there. If I had another tray, I would just lay this on top of it, but I don't, so I'm just gonna put everything in here. Okay. Now let's get my gloves back on and cover this thing with some more soil. So that's it, guys. Thanks to Epic Gardening, I am now motivated to try the microgreens. And I will definitely let you know how it is doing. I'm just gonna take these pieces of wood chips out. Level it off a bit and repeat the same process, putting a bit of finished compost on top. Oh, I see one of my worms got in there, a little baby. Just have to make sure my seeds are covered so the birds don't come and try to eat it out. I see a few worm eggs in there as well. That's fine. So that's it, guys. I have now sown my microgreen seeds. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my video, please give me a thumbs up. You can share this with your friends, and if you haven't yet done so, subscribe, and please don't forget to turn on your notification. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.